city firefighters. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Get your vehicle ready for all that extra holiday driving at your local Big O Tires. For a limited time, save $100 instantly on select sets of tires with paid installation. For your nearest store, visit BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
With the Rams already qualifying for the NFC playoffs, Chargers fans are wondering what their team needs to do to make it to the postseason. The 10-4 Chargers have 3 ways to clinch a playoff spot Sunday in the AFC. They can clinch one of the 3 wildcard slots where they win Sunday at Dallas, and if Houston or Indianapolis lose on Sunday. Houston is at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Indianapolis is at home against San Francisco. The Chargers should put their hopes on the 49ers. There is no way Houston is losing at home to the Raiders. The Chargers' final 2 regular season games are against Houston and Denver. The UCLA women's basketball team, ranked 4th in the country, had a practice game Tuesday night at Pauley Pavilion. They beat Cal Poly 115-28. Point guard Kiki Rice almost outscored the entire Cal Poly team by herself. She led the 10-1 Bruins with 23 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
Happy holidays! This holiday season, KBLA Talk 1580 wishes you and yours joy, peace, and prosperity. As we celebrate with family and friends, we're already looking forward to an exciting first quarter, packed with must-attend events to kick off the new year just right. In January, join us for our inaugural Brotherhood Brunch, bringing together community leaders, change makers, and everyday people for inspiration and connection. February means it's time for our signature Black History Month luncheon, a powerful celebration you won't want to miss. And in March, Women's History Month, we're once again hosting our State of Black Women in Los Angeles Symposium and Luncheon, addressing the issues that matter most inside our community. From all of us at KBLA Talk 1580, happy holidays. Stay tuned for more details on these incredible upcoming events. KBLA Talk 1580, your voice, your community, your power.
Performing this Christmas, please welcome 25-time Grammy Award winner and United Nations Messenger of Peace, Mr. Stevie Wonder.
Hang on the mistletoe, I'm gonna get you know you better. This Christmas, and there's been lots of tree. How much fun we're gonna be together. This Christmas, fireside blazing bright. We're caroling through the night. And this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me, yeah. Shake a hand,
I've said many times that what makes Stevie the GOAT is that whatever the occasion is, Stevie has a song for you. This is his version of the Donny Hathaway classic, This Christmas. Turn it up, Miles.
Shut the town with you. This Christmas, fireside blazing bright. We're caroling through the night. And this Christmas will be a very special Christmas for me.
That's obviously a live version of Stevie doing This Christmas. We're playing a variety of takes on This Christmas because in our last half hour today, the woman who wrote that song, oh, there's Stevie. Oh, I can't step on the harmonica, Miles. All right, I can step on him now. I'm all over the place. So I've interviewed Stevie. Stevie's my friend, as you know. I love him. I love Steve. Interviewed him more times than I can count. Hung out with him literally everywhere. But on at least 2 occasions I've had Stevie perform for me on my studio stage, and both times he played the harmonica, and both times I begged him to give me that harmonica. So in my collection of all kinds of memorabilia and artifacts over the course of my career, I have not 1 but 2 Stevie Wonder harmonicas that he played live on air, and so that's a part of my collection, and I honor Stephen Morris as the GOAT. If you're in Southern California, by the way, Stevie just announced he's doing a pop-up show, essentially, 4 nights, which he never does here in Southern California. Excuse me. So for 4 nights, starting today's Wednesday, Miles? Today's Wednesday? Yeah, so tomorrow night. Thursday night, if you're in Southern California, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday, 4 big nights. Stevie is doing a show at the Ford Theater here in Southern California, like only Stevie, right, can just announce I'm doing 4 shows and they like sell out pretty immediately. So I'm sure it's going to be hard to get a ticket, but Stevie Wonder is here in Southern California during the holiday season for 4 consecutive nights at the Ford Theater. Stevie, you should pay me for this promo, man. You should pay me for this promo. But Stevie, again, here in Southern California, the Ford Theater, 4 consecutive nights starting tomorrow night. If you're in Southern California, you want to get here to see Stevie in the holiday season, we're all doing that dance with mortality at some point. And Stevie ain't getting no younger. He's 75 now? He ain't getting no younger. So if you have never, ever seen Stevie Wonder in concert, shame on you. But you got 4 nights, 4 consecutive nights here in Southern California. If you've never seen the great Stevie Wonder live, here's your chance this week. So great way to... a great opportunity to mention that. I'm trying to go see him one of these nights, hopefully. But again, we're playing this Christmas because the woman who wrote that song for Donny Hathaway, her name is Nadine McKenna. Nadine McKenna will join us in the last half hour of today's program to tell the story that you must hear if you've never heard it before. I love when she tells it. She comes on every year to tell the story of how she wrote this song and how she got it to Donny Hathaway and how it became the classic that everybody, and I do mean everybody, has covered. In the 50-plus years that song has been out. So Nadine McKenna today closes our program in our last half hour. That said, I am delighted to welcome in studio Professor Nicholas Buccola, Professor of Government, Humanism, and Ethics at Claremont McKenna College, one of the great schools here on the West Coast and in the country for that matter. I love Claremont. His new book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. He'll explain to you why you will never hear Dr. King's I Have a Dream speech again the same way. I say all the time that too many of us only know one speech King gave. He's traveling the country every day, giving speeches all the time. Most of us only know or think he gave one speech. And then we think the speech only had one line in it. That I want my children to live in a nation where they'll not be judged by the color of their skin, by the content of their character. You don't know nothing more in that speech except the I have a dream part, right? But he's speaking across the country, around the world all the time. And it saddens me that as great as that speech was, that's the only thing that we know really in his speech repertoire. I digress on that. Of course, the Goldwater in this book title is Barry Goldwater, King, of course, being MLK. The book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. The author of this book, which I'm certain will be a classic in the years to come, joins us live in studio. I will free him for the hour when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
From California to the Carolinas, everybody's listening to Tavis. More when we come forward.
Make a move into a home of your own. With City National Bank's Ladder Up Home Loan Grant, you could receive up to $20,000 that you never need to pay back. Use it toward your down payment, save on closing costs, or to buy down your mortgage rate. Find out more at cnb.com/ladderuphome. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Property must be in a qualifying market in California, New York, or New Jersey. Additional terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Terms are subject to change without notice. City National Bank is an equal housing lender. Member FDIC. NMLS number 536994.
1 year ago, flames tore through Altadena and Eaton Canyon, changing lives forever. From the ashes, can a beloved community rise stronger? Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m., here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the 1-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating fire. We're remembering those we lost, celebrating the heroes and sheroes who answered the call, and honoring the resilience of neighbors who are determined to rebuild together.
I've been a strong black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Hear the stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community, and we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that Black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1 year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
Oh, how's that flu, babe? Did you take DayQuil Intense Flu yet?
Nah, I got this. Ugh, okay, I don't got this.
You stay on the couch, and I'll grab the DayQuil.
Undo your flu symptoms with DayQuil Intense Flu. DayQuil Intense Flu provides powerful relief of your flu symptoms.
I'm ready for that to-do list.
Wow, you do got this.
DayQuil Intense Flu. The daytime coughing, aching, fever, under your flu, medicine. Use as directed, keep out of reach of children.
If a Lenovo computer for your business is on your holiday list, don't shop around. Just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com. It's your last chance to get exclusive deals on the PCs you want for your business, like the ThinkPad X9 14 Aura Edition and Yoga 7i 2-in-1. So avoid all that shopping chaos and price comparing, and just go directly to the source, Lenovo.com, where PCs are up to 35% off. That's Lenovo.com.
Lenovo.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Before we get to Professor Buccola, here's your update that I promised in the first hour of today's program. So the video of my conversation with Rob Reiner and his son Nick, who has now been charged with 2 counts of first-degree murder, was in court earlier today. The arraignment has been postponed to January the 7th. He's being held without bail. He did not enter a plea today in court here in Southern California. But we played in our first hour my conversation with Rob and Nick from 2016. It was sort of eerie to hear them at this point talking about their relationship and Nick's drug use and Rob's feelings of guilt about trying to be a good parent, and Nick talking about being the son of Rob Reiner and the grandson of Carl Reiner and trying to make his way in the world. Just arresting to hear their voices in that conversation from a few years ago, given where this family finds itself today. But the video, I promised from that video we would get posted. It is up right now. So if you go to our KBLA 1580 page for those listening in Southern California, across the country. If you want to see the video, just go to our KBLA 1580 page, and you can actually see the video of that conversation that we played earlier in today's program. So any of my socials personally will get you connected, but go to KBLA 1580, and you can see our YouTube channel, that is. It is up on YouTube as we speak. I promised to let you know when it was up, and there you have it. It is now posted. I thank my team for moving so swiftly to get that done once we got the audio played for you earlier today. Now, for the rest of the hour, the book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. The author, Nicholas Buccola, is a professor at Claremont McKenna College, and I'm delighted to have him in studio. Professor Buccola, how are you today, sir?
I'm doing well, Tavis. Thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for your time. Thank you for your patience for me to get all that out, and now the rest of the hour belongs to you. First of all, I am fascinated by what you teach at Claremont, Professor of Government, Humanism, and Ethics. You know what I'm really fascinated about? The government part I get. Even the ethics part I get. Too many politicians don't get it, but I get it. That humanism thing jumps out at me. What's the professor doing when he or she is teaching humanism?
That's a great question. So I'm in a named professorship, that's the Dr. Jules K. Whitehill Professor of Humanism and Ethics. And so I don't know the full history of the naming of the chair, but I think when that chair became available and they asked me if I would like to occupy it. I was really honored, just because I do think of a lot of the work I do is really not necessarily firmly fixed in the sort of political science as it's usually understood, but more at this intersection of philosophy and theology and politics and literature. And so I think that, a lot of the work I've done, both as a teacher and as a scholar, is really focused on this question of human nature and what sort of conditions are necessary for human beings to flourish. So I love the title. I don't know the full history of it, where it came from. I've been meaning to find that out. But since I've been occupying it in July, that's been the way I've been thinking about it, just in terms of my own vocation.
You went there. I'm going to follow you for the rest of the hour. So to your point of a moment ago, do the conditions exist in present day for humans to, in fact, thrive, for us to flower and flourish?
Well, the answer, that's a big question, right? But I guess the answer.
You said it. You said it. I'm just asking you to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and I think that part of what I'm doing, in my work, it's sort of going back to my work on Frederick Douglass through the work on James Baldwin and now working on King, is really, I guess I have a preoccupation with this idea of freedom and what it means to be, for human beings to be free. And I really think that, one of the big questions, I'm a professor of political philosophy, so we think about these big questions about how we ought to live together. And so I think one of the big questions that I'm always thinking about in relation to freedom is, what sort of moral, economic, political, social conditions are necessary for human beings to be free? And really this work on King and this juxtaposition with Goldwater is meant to really bring that question to the fore and think about these two leaders who thought of themselves as, leaders of freedom movements, who viewed each other with great suspicion and even hostility, and trying to understand, what is it can we learn about that gap between the two of them for our own political lives. So it's always kind of central to the work I'm doing, is thinking about that.
We're going to talk about that, trust and believe, that gap between Goldwater and King for the rest of this hour. But I must tell you at the outset here, any good white brother like you, who is fascinated enough by Douglass and Baldwin and King to do work on them, is a white brother who's okay with me. So I'm gonna high five you right now in the studio, man. So you all right with me, man. But tell me what it is about, these giants in the black freedom struggle that gets a white male professor to spend his career delving into their work and their witness, as I often say.
I think, I say, when I get that question, I say, I go where the truth is.
Oh, I like that. I like that. I'm going to steal that one. I'm going where the truth is.
I think, going back to, Douglass, my work on Douglass was, I really was interested in Douglass as this kind of, central abolitionist figure. Like a lot of other people, I read Douglass's autobiographies and I was like, man, this guy is incredible. There's so much going on here. And as somebody who was studying political philosophy and thinking about these, sort of big questions about how we should live together, I was really taken by Douglass drawing on his own personal experience to sort of make sense of what is freedom, what is equality, what is justice. He's constantly, even going back to when he's reflecting on his childhood, observing what's happening around him and really asking these big questions about power. And so I really became interested in sort of thinking about Douglass, who had been covered well by historians and literary scholars and biographers, but hadn't really been studied as much as a political philosopher. I really think of what Douglass is doing is doing political philosophy, throughout his career in this kind of unconventional way. And so I think that my work on Douglass, that kind of drew me into the tradition, and I think I've been there ever since. I can't leave. I think there's so much in the sort of black freedom struggle globally, but certainly in the United States, American political thought, what I study, that really brings to these questions, to the fore, and thinking about what freedom is. The sort of absence of freedom provides a sort of space for profound reflection on what freedom is and what's necessary to achieve it. And so, I'm there, and like I said, I'm there where the truth is, and I'm going to stay there as long as I can.
That's Douglass. We'll get to King, of course, in a second, but I don't want to skip over Baldwin, the second name that you mentioned. And it seems to me, over the last couple of decades, I would stretch out, it could be 10 years, but over the last couple of decades, stretching a bit here, Baldwin has had a renaissance. Everybody, as we say in my neighborhood, everybody's quoting Baldwin these days, right? This guy has had a renaissance over the last couple of decades, but you have delved, of course, into his work as well. What do you make of my thought that he is, in fact, having a sort of renaissance, his thinking, again, everybody writing about him, everybody quoting him, and what drew you into James Baldwin?
Yeah, there's absolutely been a Baldwin renaissance, and I think it's a great thing. I think that Baldwin, he's so quotable, right? So one of the things that's happened with Baldwin is you do have these, through social media, just a Baldwin quote here, a Baldwin quote there. Raoul Peck's documentary, I'm Not Your Negro.
I love it.
Yeah,
I love it.
Brought Baldwin.
Yes.
to a lot more audiences. And so, yeah, I mean, I think Baldwin, he's somebody he always just sort of scared me, intimidated me. I thought about Baldwin, and so I was definitely not seeking out a project on Baldwin, but I was invited to write about him, and that gave me, an excuse to really engage with him in a deep way. And once I started to engage in a deep way, I was totally hooked. I'm actually working on a new book. I'm just about to hand in a new book about Baldwin. So Baldwin has a hold on my heart.
And the first one's titled?
The first one's titled "The Fire's Upon Us: James Baldwin, William F. Buckley Jr. and the Debate Over Race in America."
I love that. The fire. He said "the fire next time," and you called it "The Fire Is Up on Us."
Yeah,
love that title. Yeah.
Yeah, and again, and that the title itself comes from Baldwin when he's asked about the sort of status of the fire next time. A few years later, he says "the fire is upon us." So any wisdom I most of the wisdom I get comes from these unbelievable folks that I study. But yeah, I mean, I was drawn into Baldwin, in a very different way. With Douglas, as a project where I was thinking about, trying to build out Douglas's political thought in this kind of systematic way. With Baldwin, I was invited to write about him. I had seen a little bit of this debate with Buckley on YouTube, like a lot of millions of other folks, and I was really just drawn in by the drama of that moment of having Baldwin, sort of the poet of the revolution, as Malcolm called him, squaring off against the poet of the conservative counter-revolution on this international stage. And I kept saying to myself, like, I was writing this essay about that debate. And I'm like, how come nobody's written a book? It's been almost 50 years. I kept asking that question. And then eventually it was like, I'm going to write that book. And really, I think Baldwin is just somebody who's singular in my mind in terms of, engaging these not only political questions, but really these existential questions. He always said, like, behind every political question is a grave question of self, or these questions of identity. And that to me seems so true in terms of understanding our politics, is like what's going on the surface, of course, matters a lot, and we got to fight on that surface level all the time. But Baldwin was always there to say, like, what lies beneath. And to me, Baldwin offers a really profound set of reflections about that. So in this book, I really try to think about him taking on Buckley and what that means for how we think about our own politics today. And in this new book I'm working on, we can talk about it later if you want, is thinking about Baldwin and the concept of love, which is like sort of central to his philosophy. And so I'm thinking about Baldwin and love, and also specifically what Baldwin can teach us about what it might mean to love one's country, especially in times like these.
So you messing with me, man. You are messing with me. I'm trying to get to one man's freedom, and you keep putting these speed bumps up, these intellectual speed bumps. I can't seem to get there, but I'm glad I got you. See why I do an hour?
Yeah, we got some time.
This is why I do an hour, man, because you keep putting these these speed bumps in my way. There are two things you said now I want to probe before I get to King. You talked about Douglas, talked about Baldwin. First of all, a comment. A dear friend of mine, one of my best friends in the world, a guy named Ren Brown. Ren runs a theater here. It's at the Nate Holden, but it's called the Ebony Repertory Theater. He runs the Ebony Rep. And a few months ago, this summer, in fact, I was invited. Ren called me and said, I got something that we're doing. It's the last weekend. You got to come see this because you haven't made it yet. And I said, what is it? I've been so busy. And they did a stage play reenactment of the Baldwin-Buckley debate. I had not seen that thing for years. So I cleared my schedule. I ran to the theater, whatever day it was, and I sat at a matinee with Ren, and I watched this stage reproduction of this debate with these two brilliant actors. Two brilliant, actually three. One playing Baldwin, one playing Buckley, one playing the moderator. But it's an amazing stage play. I can't recall the name of it, but I saw it again at the Ebony Rep Theater here in Southern California. And to watch these actors reenact Baldwin, I mean, I say reenact, they were using the actual script, the text of that debate. And to watch these two actors reenact this tete-a-tete between these two intellectual giants, Baldwin and Buckley, just did something to me. And after I saw the stage play, of course, I came home and then went and found online the actual debate. And I watched that thing over and over again because to see these two guys go at it was absolutely brilliant. And so I'm glad you raised it, and I love that you titled your book, "The Fire Is Upon Us." What big question here, but what you talked about the politics of our time, and that jumped out at me. What can Douglas and Baldwin say to us? What do they, in fact, say to us about how to navigate the politics of now, the politics of our time? Does that make sense as a question?
Yeah, absolutely. I think one of the things that has been, I think, really revelatory for me in spending time, sitting and thinking with people like Douglas and Baldwin and King, is, two things. And I would say, just as a general principle, I think that one of the ideas that really comes through firmly with all these folks is thinking about we have to be deeply rooted in our core commitments and never lose sight of that. And I think that, in all these different instances, looking at Douglas and Baldwin and King in political time when they're actually engaging with real political controversies, they never forget that. And yet they also display a kind of dynamism and a recognition that people have different roles to play. So I think about like Frederick Douglass and his relationship with Abraham Lincoln and even his relationship with John Brown. Like there's a way in which Douglas is sort of he's having these fights, internally with people on his own side, and that's okay. Like I think he reaches the conclusion that he needed to play a particular role, and that Lincoln had to play a particular role, and Brown had to play a particular role. So I think that one thing that we tend to do a lot.
Sometimes I always say all the time. Sometimes you got to fight with your friends.
Yeah, exactly.
Sometimes you got to fight with your friends.
Exactly.
I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No, and exactly. And I think with Baldwin, that message comes through loud and clear as well. I mean, I love the way Baldwin will begin so many of those speeches, right? In 1963, when he's kind of on the the speaking circuit in like a really serious way, devoting almost all his time to fundraising for CORE and other protest groups. And he says, he always says, "I'm here tonight speaking as Jimmy Baldwin." So you can't blame anybody else for what I have to say. I have to say some things. That's it. And he would be there to, he would always be there to again have these fights with his friends, and also to point out like, hey, we have to do this. We have to work in the same direction, even if we're doing different things. And so, and then King, looking at King as a kind of a political leader in this book, I mean, King had to navigate that in a different way, right? So he had to think about like, I'm both, an inspiration to a lot of these student protesters, but they're going to do some of their own thing that I can't do. And I'm also trying to deal with the Kennedys on the other side here, and I'm also dealing with the segregationists here. So I think that idea just kind of running through all these projects of this idea of like our deep commitment to human dignity and trying to achieve the conditions necessary for human beings to be free, that's always got to be there, and it's always got to anchor us. But at the same time, we have to recognize that politics requires, as Baldwin said, a kind of dynamism. Like we can't be too fixed in our ways. We have to be willing to adapt to different circumstances. So I think that kind of lesson runs through for me in all these projects.
I got 2 minutes here for you to take a stab at this question right quick, and then we will move forward for the rest of the hour with the book One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle over an American Ideal. Baldwin and Love. I'm so fascinated for you to finish this book, and I mean for us to read it, because when I hear you say Baldwin and Love, I think about all the ways in which Jimmy Baldwin was so unloved, or certainly felt unloved. I think about the experiences in that Pentecostal church that he grows up in. I'm from the Pentecostal church. That's my background. I think about his father, his parents. I think about the way he was telling a truth that made people put up on him in a variety of ways. I think about his even being a gay black man. I think about his being unloved by the country and going to France. I mean, I'm trying to process all the ways in which James Baldwin must have felt unloved. And here you come writing a book about Baldwin and love. Hold that response, but you got me messed up, man, because I'm trying to figure out, like, what is the book? I mean, for a guy, again, who had to feel so unloved on so many levels and in so many ways and by so many people and by his own country, and you got a book about Baldwin and love. I want to hear what that's about when we come forward, and then we'll spend the rest of the hour delving into the third in this trifecta, Douglas, Baldwin, and MLK. Again, the book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle over an American Ideal. The author, Nicholas Buccola, professor of government, humanism, and ethics, if I can say it, at Claremont McKenna College, is our guest in the studio. I'm delighted to have him here. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
This is getting good.
Yeah, man.
Tavis Smiley continues when we come forward.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News. Now, a statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee is being replaced at the U.S. Capitol by a statue of a black teenager who fought segregation. It depicts 16-year-old Barbara Rose Johns leading a 1951 student walkout in Farmville, Virginia. Her daughter, Terry Harrison, spoke at the ceremony.
We're truly grateful that this magnificent monument to her story, the sacrifices that her family and her community made, may continue to inspire and teach others you too can reach for the moon.
Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee is ordering a review of school safety after 2 people were killed at Brown University over the weekend. And an NBC poll found 55% of respondents intend to spend less cash on Christmas gifts in comparison to last year. Get BIN News now on demand 24/7 on the iHeartRadio app.
Get your vehicle ready for all that extra holiday driving at your local Big O Tires. For a limited time, save $100 instantly on select sets of tires with paid installation. For your nearest store, visit BigOTires.com.
This is the KBLA Sports Minute with Ray Richardson.
With the Rams already qualifying for the NFC playoffs, Chargers fans are wondering what their team needs to do to make it to the postseason. The 10-4 Chargers have 3 ways to clinch a playoff spot Sunday in the AFC. They can clinch one of the 3 wildcard slots where they win Sunday at Dallas, and if Houston or Indianapolis lose on Sunday. Houston is at home against the Las Vegas Raiders. Indianapolis is at home against San Francisco. The Chargers should put their hopes on the 49ers. There is no way Houston is losing at home to the Raiders. The Chargers' final 2 regular season games are against Houston and Denver. The UCLA women's basketball team, ranked 4th in the country, had a practice game Tuesday night at Pauley Pavilion. They beat Cal Poly 115-28. Point guard Kiki Rice almost outscored the entire Cal Poly team by herself. She led the 10-1 Bruins with 23 points. No debates, no speculation, just the info you need. That's your KBLA Sports Minute. I'm Ray Richardson on KBLA Talk 1580.
We've got a lot to talk about.
Hi, I'm Zoe Williams, a.k.a. the Voice of Reason, encouraging you to join me weekdays from 7 to 9 p.m. for the world's most intriguing relationship radio roundtable. Every night, I facilitate and encourage our loyal listeners to participate in the most engaging relationship discussions you'll hear anywhere. So make it a point to rendezvous with me, Zoe Williams, the Voice of Reason, Monday through Friday, 7 to 9 p.m. Pacific Standard Time. Trust me, your relationships will never be the same. The VOR is on fire tonight.
Unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580. We've got your black.
1 year ago, flames tore through Altadena and Eaton Canyon, changing lives forever. From the ashes, can a beloved community rise stronger? Hi, I'm Dominique DePrima, host of First Things First, weekday mornings, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. here on KBLA Talk 1580. And I'm inviting you to join us on Wednesday, January 7th, as we broadcast live from Perry's Joint on the 1-year anniversary of this horrific and devastating fire. We're remembering those we lost, celebrating the heroes and sheroes who answered the call, and honoring the resilience of neighbors who are determined to rebuild together.
I've been a strong black woman a long time, and I can't just break down now.
Hear the stories of survival, the voices of recovery, the spirit of community that the fire couldn't destroy, and yes, the angst of those who still do not know where they go from here.
Yeah, where am I gonna go?
At KBLA Talk 1580, we don't just cover the story, we're part of this community, and we've done our level best to hold those responsible for this fire accountable. And 1 year later, we're still standing together.
It is my hopes that black people will rebuild those homes.
So join us live at Perry's Joint, 2051 Lincoln Avenue in Pasadena, 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. on Wednesday, January 7th, as we commemorate the 1-year anniversary of the Altadena Eaton Canyon fire. Because some stories demand to be remembered.
This too shall pass.
KBLA Talk 1580. Talk radio that's music to your ears. We're unapologetically progressive. KBLA Talk 1580.
Paid for by government.com. Did you know? The United States Mint has issued a new Morgan silver dollar coin in proof condition for the first time. Not only that, they are also minted in 99.9% pure silver for the first time ever in history. Coin experts are calling this an amazing opportunity for anyone that knows the enduring popularity of Morgans. But you must hurry. Only 400,000 of these legal tender silver dollars were issued. These first ever Morgan silver dollars are brand new with stunning mirror-like finish, minted by the iconic San Francisco Mint. Call now and you're guaranteed a new first ever 99.9% pure silver proof Morgan dollar. To learn more, call 1-800-973-9717. If you order now, you will receive a free coin collector bonus pack, a $25 value, free with every order. Call 1-800-973-9717 now to secure your new Morgan silver dollars before they are gone. That's 1-800-973-9717.
Sometimes he fails at fitting in, but we're okay with that. You're inside the Tavis Smiley Show.
You are indeed with a professor of government, humanism, and ethics at Claremont McKenna College. His latest book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. His name is Nicholas Buccola, and we have had a rich conversation. If you missed any part of this first half, check it out later tonight when the podcast is posted. But you've missed a deep dialogue already just in the first half, talking about these three icons of the Black freedom struggle and the American struggle for democracy that he is focused on in his work. That would be Frederick Douglass, James Baldwin, and MLK, who we're working our way toward right now. One quick Baldwin question the rest of the time on this new book. Your next book that you're working on, beyond this one, you're a busy guy, man, is about Baldwin and love. You heard me say earlier, I won't repeat it in the interest of time, but all the ways it seems to me that Baldwin was so unloved by people, by his country, et cetera, et cetera. He's a gay black man. All the ways he must have felt unloved, and here you come with a book about Baldwin and love. Can you just top line for me what your thesis is?
Yeah, I love that. That's such a beautiful way of thinking about it. I mean, that Baldwin, there's so many ways in which he's unloved. You talk about his father and all these different things. And so I think that part of what I'm getting at in the book is that Baldwin thinks of love itself as in a kind of confrontational way. So I mean, he'll say things like love is a battle, love is a war, love is a growing up, love is taking off the masks. You know, love is sort of like part of what I'm building out in this book is this idea of love is this combination of radical empathy and radical confrontation. So he's sort of saying that we have to think about, appreciate the ways in which all the human beings around us confront what he calls impossibilities, like try to really come to terms with the fact that everybody in our lives, everybody, that we see is dealing with a kind of impossibility that we can't see. So that's the radical empathy. But then there's this radical confrontation where he says, if I love you, I have to make you conscious of what you can't see. Right. So that's there, so part of what I want to think about is if we think about that throughout Baldwin's life and his relationships and all these, kind of both personal and political relationships that he has, how can we make sense of that idea of love? And then how does that translate into what it might mean to love one's country in a way that says we have to love our country in a way that makes the country conscious of what it doesn't see?
Baldwin is Exhibit A for me when it comes to comforting the afflicted and afflicting the comfortable.
Yes.
He's Exhibit A.
Absolutely.
In that regard, and I love him. I could do another hour or two with you.
Well, I'll come back on.
You better come back on. I'm telling my producers right now, make sure Professor Buccola gets booked again. Book him again for his next book about Baldwin and love. All right, One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. Why this book about Goldwater and King? They couldn't be more disparate, more different.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so I mean, part of this, this book kind of emerged out of the Buckley Baldwin one, and the Buckley Baldwin book gave me an excuse to think about the conservative and civil rights movements together. And so I wanted, as I was working on that book, I teach a class called What is Freedom? And I was thinking about maybe I'll write a big freedom book about these two movements and how this idea is central, but the two, folks in the movement mean different things by it. So I had this big proposal with all these different people, King, Goldwater, Medgar Evers, Ella Baker, you name it. And then, my editor looked at it and he said, this is a good idea, but there are limits to book bindery technology. This is way too big, so you've got to write something a little more narrow. So he said, maybe you can focus on Goldwater and King in the next one, and then maybe there'll be a third in the trilogy. But yeah, so part of what I wanted to think about with this one is you have Goldwater and King, both, think of themselves and are perceived by those who support them as leaders of freedom movements, and yet they view each other with such, hostility and suspicion. And so I look at this, in this book, I start out in the mid-'50s when King's kind of arriving on the public scene, the national scene, through the Montgomery bus boycott, and Goldwater is sort of arriving on the national scene as a leader of this new conservative movement. And I try to trace out from the mid-'50s through 1964 how these two guys are both I call them, the first chapter is called Prophets with a PH Rising. So they're both out on the road talking about their sort of gospel of freedom. And so I just trace this story of the two of them kind of developing these philosophies of freedom that really put them on a collision course with each other.
Tell me how both, what your research tells you about how both of their sermons were actually received. Put another way, how both of their philosophies took hold. Because it's hard to argue, of course, that King built a following, but so did Barry Goldwater.
Yeah.
And they're preaching, again, messages that are very disparate. But in that America, both of those messages, those sermons, if you will, take hold. How's that possible?
That's a great question. Well, yeah, it's all a question of audience, right? In a way. And so I think that, on the Goldwater side of the story, what really struck me in really getting into the archive and looking at all these speeches he's giving all over the country in those early days is that he would generally start a speech by saying, like, freedom is in peril, right? We're losing our freedom in this way and that. And he would usually emphasize the sort of threats to freedom coming from, quote unquote, big government and quote unquote, big labor. And so he would talk about all the ways in which these sort of these things were taking away our freedom, and he would usually, so it's kind of like this kind of libertarian conception, pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of individualism in a lot of these speeches. But one of the things I found striking is that the elements of a kind of like Goldwater as culture warrior that came through. He would talk about the ways in which big government is emasculating us as citizens, and we're being pacified by government support and that sort of thing. And so that I think that message, sort of resonates with a certain kind of crowd that sort of is thinking about their freedom in this very individualist way. They sort of think of themselves as wanting to be left alone, even though this isn't really in reality. They are relying on the government in all sorts of different ways. But I think in the sort of mythos of this idea of like being sort of a rugged individual is something Goldwater really taps into. And meanwhile, King, I think he finds an audience, right? It's important to remember, and you've written about this, King is viewed with such hostility by so much of the country, the white folks in the country. But in terms of the audience that King finds in those early days, I think King is really offering a very different vision of freedom. It's freedom it's sort of freedom instead of freedom as rugged individualism. It's freedom as conscientious collaboration. It's freedom as something radically democratic. So as he is sort of rising on the scene with the Montgomery bus boycott, he's trying to say, look, this isn't about me. This would have happened without Martin Luther King. You put me in this position.
He tried to get out of it. He didn't want it. Exactly.
Yeah, I always tell people, it's like King got that job because he hadn't been in town long enough to make that many enemies. That's why I'm department chair right now. I haven't been in town long enough to make enemies. But give me time. But yeah, I mean, so King comes in and he says, like, I'm trying to sort of draw the energy of this movement. I'm trying to try to sort of channel the energy of the black working class in Montgomery and these women who really organized in that boycott. And so King really has this radically democratic conception of freedom. So it sort of juxtaposes. I mean, I sort of knew going in these two guys are going to have very different philosophies of freedom, but that juxtaposition very early on is evident, where King is really trying to draw the ways in which our freedom depends on other people, right? We need one another in order to be free, whereas Goldwater's articulating this kind of freedom as rugged individualism idea.
That's King's thing. Our destiny is inextricably tied together.
Absolutely.
That's King. So as you're talking, I'm thinking about message and messenger. In a contemporary sense, even if you thought that Joe Biden had the right message, many thought he was the wrong messenger at that time. So when you think about King and his message and being a messenger, we can skip past that real fast. He's the greatest orator that ever lived, right? So we know how King presents. Talk to me about Barry Goldwater as a messenger. I know the message, but as a presenter, as a public speaker, he's no King. I mean, there's only one of King, right? But Barry Goldwater's no King. He ain't a Mario Cuomo. He ain't a Jesse Jackson. I can run the list. Not even a Barack Obama. But how does Barry Goldwater present as a messenger the message he's delivering? Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. And this is a great question because a lot of people, as they dig into the book and maybe they didn't know that much about Goldwater, they'll go on YouTube and watch some speeches and like, I don't really get it. This guy isn't really a powerful orator and so on. And so I've been thinking a lot about that, and I get it this in the book, is that there's a way in which Goldwater, the sort of idea of persona, right? The idea of, I've been joking around that Goldwater reveals the importance of accessorizing, right? Because you think about the way that Goldwater was presented to the public in the mainstream press, and this is, during his rise, he gets all sorts of really favorable coverage until he's nominated for president. And if you think about it, it kind of tracks with this philosophy, because every feature of Goldwater in a mainstream magazine or newspaper has Goldwater in his flight suit, right? So this is a pilot, right? And he's up there flying the plane. He'd fly himself around to campaign events. So there's something about that that's very individualist, right? Goldwater in his cowboy outfit. So he's out there on the frontier, with this kind of
Arizona,
exactly. Yeah. So again, that kind of taps into this rugged individualism. And also that, when we think about Goldwater, okay, so that's, kind of this image of Goldwater, but also like in terms of the politics of it, he kind of gets into politics politics. He's a dark horse candidate. Nobody thinks he's going to win. He runs against the Senate Majority Leader and surprises everybody by winning. And he does it in part by just being like a kind of plain-spoken, I'm going to shoot from the hip kind of guy. I'm going to say what's politically unpopular. And people like really, that becomes part of this kind of myth of Barry Goldwater. It's not just all myth, right? That becomes part of how they understand this guy. And he takes great pride in that, this idea of being an individualist in politics as well. And then I think the glasses help.
Oh, yeah.
You know, I mean, so like, all these things that don't really track with, like, and Goldwater was not an intellectual. He's not somebody, and he would, he dropped out of college to go work in his father's business after his father passed away. But the glasses help, right? Because it kind of gives him, like, there's a lot of ruggedness in Barry Goldwater, but then the glasses kind of give him this kind of professor.
Studious.
Yeah, so I think but that story, though, I think that, again, just sort of like the performance of politics is part of this as well. Is sort of like understanding why is it that Goldwater becomes the vehicle for this movement at that time. And I think that's, you raise a great question, and I try to sort of suggest some of the reasons why I think that happened, but it's important to the story.
When we come forward, I want to talk about the fact that while they are both crisscrossing the country at the same time, delivering their various messages about freedom in this country, one is a prophet, the other is a politician. One is using a pulpit, the other is using his bully pulpit on the political hustings. I want to talk about how the platforms on which they stand are dramatically different, and yet I'm curious as to how those platforms aided and abetted them, but also might have served as I mentioned speed bumps earlier. It might have served as speed bumps or roadblocks for them, because King has a certain freedom because he's challenging the system, but he's outside the system.
Yeah.
Goldwater is challenging the system, but he's in the system. So much so he's nominated for president. Am I making sense here?
Yeah.
I want to get at that dialectic if we can when we come forward with Nicholas Buccola. The book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. Glad to have him right now in studio. You're listening to Tavis Smiley.
Generous listening. Charitable listening. It's why everybody wants to talk to Tavis. The conversation continues when we come forward.
Check out the champagne. Everybody get a glass.
KBLA Talk 1580 congratulates our own Keith Underwood, host of the weekend entertainment show Black in the Green Room, on his recent honor at the annual National Arts and Entertainment Journalism Awards. Keith received a first place award presented by the Los Angeles Press Club for his entertainment reporting, and we couldn't be prouder. Congratulations, Keith, from all of us at KBLA Talk 1580.
We asked seniors how to prevent Medicare scams.
My best advice, if you get a phone call, do not talk to the person. These people are well-trained. Don't talk to them.
They don't know me. They're just trying to scam me.
Don't be fooled. Hang up.
Just hang up.
Never give out your Medicare number.
They're going to get your number to put in a false claim.
If I get a call from someone, I don't pick up the phone. And should I pick up the phone and they ask for information, then I hang up.
How do you detect Medicare fraud?
Just like I check my credit card statements, I check my Medicare statements monthly.
Scammers can get a hold of your number, order medical devices through your account, and you're not even going to know about it if you don't look at your statement. Check your statement every month.
If you get your statement and you see something that you know you did not have done, you report it.
Call your senior Medicare Patrol.
To report Medicare fraud, call the Senior Medicare Patrol at 855-613-7080.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
He's a paradigm pioneer and the top-rated African-American talk show host in the nation, according to Talkers Magazine. You're tapped in with Tavis Smiley right now.
Tavis Smiley and Professor Nicholas Buccola, who is at Claremont McKenna College as Professor of Government, Humanism, and Ethics. His book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. They're both out there expressing their own ideals about freedom. Again, two different perspectives, but one is a prophet, one's a politician. One's on the inside, one's on the outside. What's the rub?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think that, one of the things I found remarkable in the early parts of the book is that, in the research for the early parts of the book is that they are, they're relatively untethered in those early days, in the sense that, King, again, is sort of thrust into this leadership role, and he's soon, is on the cover of Time magazine not long after, the bus boycott begins. And so he does feel like somewhat limited in what he can say, because he is thinking about the sort of the objectives of the boycott. But Goldwater, pretty early on, it's pretty clear that he's not interested in being a senator, really. Like he doesn't, he's not interested in legislating. He doesn't want to build coalitions. He is made the Senate Republican campaign chair during his first term in office. And so they send him out on the road to go speak about conservatism in those early days. And so because he wasn't especially concerned about like building coalitions, and really didn't want to run for president, we can get to that later if you want, but he's sort of like, he's relatively free to speak his mind. And there was indeed some problems with Goldwater's, willingness to speak his mind and sometimes deviate from the Eisenhower administration line. And eventually, when there was the liberal Republicans didn't really like the idea of Goldwater speaking on their behalf in their campaigns. But yeah, I mean, there's kind of way in which each of them, I mean, how they conceive of what they're doing. I think it's an important distinction that you're making, is that like they did have, different objectives for sure, but like exactly, how free they were to speak. I think in the early days that seems to be kind of, less of a difference than you'd think, I think. And then in the later days, King gets drawn further and further into politics. So then he has to operate kind of a little bit as a politician and sort of think about on the one hand, I believe this is a matter of principle. On the other hand, I want to achieve this objective. So yeah, that kind of tension between, prophecy and politics, I think is one that runs throughout the book.
Yep. In our remaining moments with Professor Buccola, I do want to ask him to say a bit more about the fact that Barry Goldwater didn't really want to run. We'll let him opine on that. And then I want to close with this, I think, is the exit question, which is, I'm laughing already because I can already hear some of his response. No naivete here. So let me just let you know I'm not stupid when I ask this question. But it seems to me that Barry Goldwater, were he here today, would not recognize conservatism. It's so dramatically different than what it was when he was on the hustings and what we have now. And that's to say nothing of the Trump era and MAGA. But even those persons who are trying to hold on to the conservative ideals of this party and not get caught up in the nonsense that Trump is advancing have to acknowledge that conservatism in the Goldwater era is nothing like conservatism in this era. I want you to sound off on that, if you will. Once again, the book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King, and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. Our remaining moments with Professor Nicholas Buccola when we come forward on Tavis Smiley.
Why does Tavis say, when we come forward? Because he's not going back. And you don't have to go back either. Forward ever, backward never. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
Hear that? That's the sound of your life. Perfectly imperfect. Beating in rhythm to the world you've created. But every time you drive after drinking, the music gets drowned out. Your life sounds pretty great. Don't let a buzz ruin it. Buzz driving is drunk driving. Don't drive buzzed. A message from NHTSA and the Ad Council.
KBLA Talk 1580. We've got a lot to talk about.
Imagine a Los Angeles where everyone can thrive, where communities have access to the resources they need to succeed. That's the vision of Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. They're dedicated to improving life in LA County by providing educational support, employment assistance, and spaces for community engagement. By 2050, they want LA to be the best place to connect, create, learn, live, and play. They're working toward an education system that's well-resourced and culturally responsive, becoming a hub for artists and innovators, and making sure everyone has access to healthy food, quality healthcare, and safe housing. It's about building a future where we all have the chance to succeed. We invite you to learn more about their mission and get involved with Detours Mentoring Group, Inc. This is a community call to action from KBLA Talk 1580.
Find what you love, love what you find. A total wine and more. There's so much waiting for you. Spirits and beer, thousands of wines. Guides in the know and prices so low. It just might blow your mind. You're gonna find find.
With curbside pickup and delivery available, you'll always find what you love, only at Total Wine & More.
Drink responsibly, B21.
If you're like me, 60 and retired, making ends meet, especially here at the supermarket and drugstore, is tough. I'm so blessed to have found benefitscheckup.org. It's a free and confidential website from the National Council on Aging that connected me to $1,200 a year in programs that help pay for food, medicine, utilities, and more. Maybe it can help you. benefitscheckup.org.
You know where you want to go in life, and City National Bank can help. City National knows the dedication it takes to build your vision for the future into a reality, and our team is here for you. We have a wide range of options to help, from personal savings accounts to interest-bearing money market savings accounts and more, all designed to help you get where you want to go. City National, here for every stage of the journey. Learn more at cnb.com. City National Bank is a subsidiary of Royal Bank of Canada. Member FDIC.
Freedom is an endless meeting. So let's get back to it with Tavis Smiley.
Remaining moments with Nicholas Buccola, professor of government, humanism, and ethics at Claremont McKenna College. His book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. I want to put you on the spot right quick. We talked about Douglas, Baldwin, and King. Mention the name of the Douglas book and the Baldwin book right quick.
So The Political Thought of Frederick Douglass is the first one, and the Baldwin book is The Fires Upon Us, James Baldwin, William F. Buckley Jr. and the Debate Over Race in America.
And this one's One Man's Freedom, again, Goldwater, King and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. I've got 2.5 minutes left. I will yield it to the gentleman from Claremont McKenna College to say a quick word about why Goldwater really didn't want to run, and the conservative party, the conservative wing of the party, is so radically different these days.
Yeah. So I think that, a really important thing, that I would encourage listeners to think about is that, when we think about Goldwater and the sort of what conservatism meant to him, and then we think about whatever the American right wing is today, I do think that's a story of both continuity and discontinuity, and I think that's really important, that there's ways in which Goldwater, I think plants the seeds for some of the things we're seeing today, and then is also, I think, in some ways very different. So I would say that one of the central things that I would just highlight is that, the last chapter, the epilogue in the book is called The Most Dangerous Men in America, and that in part comes from King saying that Goldwater was for a time the most dangerous man in America. So how do we make sense of that? And I think part of what King is saying is,
and of course, Hoover said that about him.
Yes,
he was the most
exactly.
By the MLK. Yeah. I'm sorry.
Exactly.
Yeah.
No worries. Yeah, and so I think that part of what King thinks is so dangerous about Goldwater is he said Goldwater was not himself racist, or didn't think of what he was doing as racist, and yet, he was sort of aiding and abetting the worst elements in American politics, including the most far right elements in American politics. So part of what I wanted to get at in this book, or I end up getting at by way of the research, is that viewing Goldwater through the lens King's provides us with a sense in which there's so many things that are sort of part of maintaining this system of white supremacy that might be unintentional, right? Goldwater does not think of what he's doing as racist, but in the end, he's ending up, reaching a lot of the same conclusions as the most hardened segregationists in the society. So part of what I think King raises, both in terms of the questions of race and civil rights, and also the questions of economic justice, which he is just as critical of Goldwater on those questions as the questions of civil rights, is that King is saying, look, like the Goldwater agenda is not going to make people free. And here are the things that he's missing. So King says, forgive him, he knows not what he does, right? So he accuses Goldwater of a tragic moral blindness. And I think what King is trying to get all of us to see is that freedom cannot be realized without a serious commitment to economic and racial justice.
The book is called One Man's Freedom, Goldwater, King and the Struggle Over an American Ideal. Nicholas Buccola is the author of the book. He's professor of government, humanism, and ethics at Claremont McKenna College. I knew this would be a great conversation. It so exceeded my expectations, especially having you in studio. Thank you for this book. Thank you for your work. Thank you for your witness. Thank you for this conversation.
Thank you so much, Tavis.
Happy holidays, my friend. More of Tavis Smiley when we come forward.
KBLA 1580 Santa Monica.
I'm Misty Jordan with BIN News Now. A statue of Confederate General Robert E. Lee is being replaced at the U.S. Capitol by a statue of a black teenager who fought segregation. It depicts 16-year-old Barbara Rose Johns leading a 1951 student walkout in Farmville, Virginia. Her daughter, Terry Harrison, spoke at the ceremony.
We're truly grateful that this magnificent monument to her story, the sacrifices that her family and her community made, may continue to inspire and teach others you too can reach for the moon.
Rhode Island Governor Dan McKee is ordering